Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
This is the second day in a row we've gotten to chat this
Yes.
week, which is always a treat. I was a special guest on the Matt Lewis in the News podcast, where we talked a lot about Nancy Pelosi. So we don't need to rehash that here. So you could just you could stop now, go hear the Matt Lewis in the News podcast if you wanted to hear us in chronological order.
Yeah, I think that you should do that. It's not going to make a lot of sense unless you do that. So stop now.
You want to follow the plot. No spoilers.
No, it was based off a Real Clear Politics piece you wrote. Is that right?
Yep.
RCP.
Yep.
And it was called, it was a play on something that Nancy Pelosi had said about she's worth the
Nancy Pelosi is worth the trouble. Yeah, after
the trouble.
After John Ossoff lost and she was taking the blame, and she gave a press conference where Democrats were on record saying we can't win with Nancy Pelosi, and Nancy Pelosi said, I think I'm worth the trouble, and then went on to say I am a master legislator, which I think at the time got a lot of guffaws. Like, who does she think she is?
Well, I think I mocked her. I think I wrote a column about this.
But lo and behold, she just smoked Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell inside the Oval Office because she can deliver the votes and they can't. So we don't need to rehash all of that.
Yeah, go listen to that on iTunes.
But a day after I express my admiration for the Democratic leadership, I'm now causing trouble and losing friends because I have a piece in Politico.
A lot of people don't know that was the original title of the book, "How to Cause Trouble and Lose Friends." And
so this title is "The Single Payer Insanity," and it may also say, just as a personal point of pride, two headlines in a row that I wrote myself that were accepted by my editors.
See, this is a problem because you're going to give people the idea that we can write our own headlines, and then you're going to be responsible.
It's always the standard cop out there. I don't write the headlines. Don't blame me for the headline.
Yeah, that's one of the only things we have going for us is that we can claim. And so, and reasonably claim that we didn't write the headline.
Well, and 99% of the time that is true. The editors do write the headlines. Editors have the final say over the headline. No one comes back to me and say, hey, I'm going to change the headline for you. Is that okay? They just do the headline. But I will often write a headline when I submit my draft, and every so often they actually take it. So,
some would argue that you can't write the piece unless you have the headline in your head. That's not how I do it.
Really?
But you could make an argument that you should begin with the headline in mind.
That's how I have to function. I feel like I need that headline to give myself a framework for what I am doing. What is the ultimate point I'm trying to, stick to and lead back to?
I do like it when you write my leads.
Don't give away all the secrets. I'm not the puppet master.
Anyway,
so today we're taping on Wednesday morning. I believe in about a half hour or so, Senator Bernie Sanders will unveil his latest version of Medicare for All. When he did this 4 years ago, he had a whopping total of 0 co-sponsors. Last I read, he had 15 for this version, and the similar bill in the House that's always introduced by Congressman John Conyers, this year, for the first time, has a majority of the House Democratic Caucus co-sponsoring. Sanders doesn't have just a random 15 people. He has basically everybody who is considered a potential presidential prospect: Elizabeth Warren, Kirsten Gillibrand, Cory Booker, Jeff Merkley. Jeff Merkley is a possibility for running, by the way. Kamala Harris, who was being attacked as being insufficiently progressive by Bernie fans just a month ago. Now she's on board. I don't know if Chris Murphy jumped on or not. He has his own bill where you would do a voluntary buy-in to Medicare, which he has billed himself as a stepping stone to single payer. And he was quoted the other day saying he might sign to Bernie's 2. I don't know if he followed through on that. So you really have, within a span of a year, Democrats, unofficially I would say, but I think for all intents and purposes, becoming the single-payer party. It's not literally in the platform. It's not the It's not Pelosi. It's not Schumer saying it. Schumer entertained it the other day. And now you're almost guaranteeing that the presidential nominee in 2020 will be a single-payer advocate. Now, it's possible that there's going to be some kind of backlash to it, and someone finds a way to run up the middle and or take a relative right flank, and the populace divide, and that someone else gets who's not a single-payer fan. But that seems unlikely at this point, and not arguably where the heart of the party is right now. So is this a good idea? I make the case in Politico that it's not, and I'm not saying that it's bad policy necessarily. I'm not even saying that Democrats would automatically lose the next election by embracing it. There's first off, there are polls that show in the abstract people like the idea, and even if there are people who don't like the idea, Trump has several policy positions that are not majority positions, and he's president today. And so you can't even assume there's one position people don't like means you can't get elected. I think the bigger concern for Democrats is that if they did win, having offered an unrealistic proposition that is hard to actually execute, and I wrote this in a piece actually back in July, and Margaret
It's fair
Sanger,
to say, Bill, that you are the leading opposition to single payer coming from the left in America today.
I might be eclipsed yesterday by Hillary Clinton. She was out there on, I know she was out there on Ezra Klein's Vox podcast, and I think you told me she might have said similar things on Pod Save America.
But unlike Hillary, you have a political future.
That's right. That's right. I am risking my chances for higher office by taking the stance. I'm not liberated the way Hillary is. Margaret Sanger Katz, who was the healthcare policy walk at the New York Times, she pointed out, and I said similar things in a couple pieces. This is analogous to a repeal and replace for the Republicans. Something that sounds good on the campaign trail, simple bumper sticker solution, riles up the base. You get into office, things are more complicated than I thought they were going to be. So that very well could be the case with single payer. And the point that I drove harder in this most recent piece is raising the question, why is it, of all the issues that are out there, this issue is being pushed by Bernie and others in his circle as the make or break issue? Bernie is saying, well, I'm not saying it's a litmus test, when he was asked that the other day. But Nina Turner at Our Revolution, the group he founded, there's an Our Revolution video that came out in August where she is quoted at a rally saying, if Democrats don't do this, we need to get some new folks. I saw Nina Turner in a separate interview say it's not a litmus test, it's a values proposition. Well, what's the difference? You're saying you're going to get rid of people if they don't support this. That is a litmus test. And Sanders himself said, I'm not saying it's a litmus test, but I'm skeptical that Democrats can get elected in primaries if they don't embrace this. So he's basically saying, I'm not making a litmus test, but hey, the people are making a litmus test. Why is that the one being leaned into? Why not climate? Why not infrastructure? Why not guns? Why not immigration? I mean, people might say, well, healthcare, this is life or death. So are all these other things. You can make a lot of issues life or death issues if you want to. I mean, climate, for Pete's sake, is planetary survival. Even Bernie has talked about that in very urgent terms. But what I think, and I didn't say this in the piece, I might say this in some tweets after we break. What I think the difference is single payer provides the tidiest argument for democratic socialism and eradication of corporate influence. I mean, there's no just reason why people should profit off of healthcare. I mean, that would be the argument. Yeah. And if you are going to create a system, you're going to defend a system where people can profit off of your health, well, you show me what side you're on. Whereas if it's climate, I'm for a revenue neutral carbon tax. Well, I'm for a carbon tax where we funnel the money back into poor communities. Well, I'm for a cap and trade. Well, I'm for a cap and dividend. It's not as clean a wedge when you push that issue. There's several ways you could talk about it, several positions you could take to show your climate bona fides. with healthcare now, it's becoming impossible to say you're on the side of justice if you're not for single payer. And so Bernie can use that. And I'm not saying Bernie's insincere. I'm not saying he doesn't believe this is good policy, or his voters believe it's good policy. I'm sure, obviously, they do. But it's also a political power play. It's a way to drive that wedge and say, who's in charge here? Who is the de facto leader of this party? There's no other issue where Bernie can make that move but single payer.
Well, I mean, obviously this is, conservatives and Republicans warned that Obamacare, Hillary Care, all these things would be a stepping stone toward, single payer, toward socialized medicine. So that's the slippery slope argument.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that, because Obamacare really isn't. There's nothing in Obamacare that puts you on a glide path to single payer. Obamacare is a modification of the current private insurance system with the added individual mandate. You're legally obligated to buy private plans except for hardship exemption, and those private plans will have some tougher regulations from what they had before. Minimum benefits. There's some max on how much you can profit. Now, there's the Medicaid expansion. The Medicaid expansion, you could argue, is more like a stepping stone to single payer. If everyone loves this Medicaid expansion, well, let's just keep it going. Let's just have everybody get on Medicaid or everybody get on Medicare. I mean, that part of it you could make that case for, but the crux of Obamacare really is the individual mandate, and that really isn't. So we had a fan write into Blogging Ed Central who read my piece, and that person wrote, after reading Bill Scher's Politico article, I'm hoping he could use his show to talk about the possibility of expanding Medicare to people 55 and older as a voluntary option. Many of us middle-aged folks have lost employer health care coverage, along with pensions and other benefits over the past 30 years. Letting us choose between Medicare and Obamacare seems fair. Now, there was talk about Medicare buying for 55 and older in the Obamacare debate. Lieberman put the kibosh on that, so that couldn't get in there. Sherrod Brown, who has said he is for single payer in the abstract, is not signing on to Bernie's bill and is pushing his own 55 and older plan. And I said before, Chris Murphy has not just a 55 and older, but a Medicare buy-in for everybody as a voluntary option. These are all variations of public option. And there was an argument that the person who first created public option was a guy named Jacob Hacker, policy professor. I think he's at Yale now, if he hasn't gone somewhere else, and policy maestro. He had a public option argument, which was that public option is a good in and of itself. It provides competitive pressure on private plans that will make the entire system work more efficiently. So he was not selling it as a stepping stone to single payer. He was selling it as a good in and of itself. There is nobody today in the Democratic Party making that case. Everybody who talks about public option talks about it as a stepping stone to single payer, including Sherrod Brown, who's keeping his distance from Bernie's bill, and Chris Murphy. So once you make an explicit stepping stone argument, the right, corporate America, insurance industry, they're going to attack public option as a stepping stone to single payer because you've given away the game. You can't say, well, all of these single payer criticisms, they don't apply to this. You've already acknowledged that that's the path that you're on. So any ideological baggage that comes with single payer is now infecting public option.
But so I would ask this though. I think that Obamacare is a stepping stone and part of this slippery slope because it is sort of opened people to the idea of this and to the idea of change, and and so it's kind of a permission structure type thing. And so I guess the question, it sounds like you're assuming that that single payer is going to be unpopular once people realize the ramifications, that it's going to be easy to demagogue, that it's going to be bad politics, and it's going to make Democrats look extreme and too far out on the left. Are you sure you're right about that? Isn't it possible that opinions have changed and that this debate has moved farther to the left than you realize?
Well, I think both are true. I think the center of gravity in the country on this issue has moved left. I mean, you have in a Kaiser poll that was in June, Medicare for all gets 57% approval. And if you say single payer in poll, there's that Kaiser poll and also Quinnipiac poll, use the single payer formulation, you're still over 50%, but it's like more low to mid 50s. So I think there is the ability to sort of knock that idea out of the box based on the socialist boogeyman. You can't do that in the current landscape. But what has not changed is the fundamental nature of healthcare politics, which is whatever reform you propose, whether it's from the left or the right, there you are upending the current structure and creating real or perceived winners and losers. And the losers get the upper hand in the debate every time. So Hillary Clinton, Hillary Care in the early 90s, the Harry and Louise ads come out. The lead argument is this isn't covered under our government plans anymore. We had these wonderful plans before, and now our choice, we were given these choices by government bureaucrats, and they're worse. And the Clintons never were able to come out from under that. I mean, they could say all the stuff they wanted about their plan. No one wanted to hear it. Obamacare gets through, actually gets passed, but the argument that you are taking from certain people and giving to others never dissipates. I mean, that was literally in Republican ads all the way through. They're taking from your Medicare because they had the temerity of actually trying to save money on Medicare through cost efficiencies. They're taking your Medicare and giving it to somebody else for their Obamacare. And then once Obamacare is embedded and Republicans say, let's repeal Obamacare. Wait a second, you're taking away my Obamacare. I need that Obamacare. So there's no way to do it where someone isn't mad. And the person who's mad gets the bigger megaphone. So in a single payer case, you're telling everybody, I don't care what plan you're on, you are going to be in this single payer plan. And trust me, you're going to like it better. Yeah, I know I'm raising your taxes, but you're not going to pay premiums. And you're going to get whatever you want from it. And if there's some elective thing that you want, you buy supplemental and it'll all work out. I mean, I get the argument, and I'm not even saying it's a bad argument, but all the evidence we have the last 3 decades of brutal, vicious healthcare politics is people don't trust that the shift is going to work out in their favor. That's why I don't see how, no matter what happens in 2018 and 2020, I don't think you're going to get 60 rock-solid Democratic socialists who are going to ignore all that naysaying and ram this through.
You may not need 60.
Well, McConnell's not eliminating the filibuster.
So I'll just tell you quickly, I haven't thought too much about this issue because it hasn't been realistic. But from a conservative standpoint, 2 things come to mind that concern me about the possibility of this. One is this is probably more for like a pharmaceutical industry than like healthcare specifically. But, competition and the profit motive, I think, does drive innovation, And so part of being a capitalist and a conservative is believing that man's sort of selfish nature can lead to positive outcomes. You're not going to get rid of people wanting to get rich. And so let's use that for us. Let them trying to get rich by curing cancer or something. The other thing is sort of a philosophy I have, and this is like a conservative argument, but it's made from a weird position. So basically, here's my take on, like, if I got sick or if a loved one got sick. If our insurance company says they're not going to cover it, I could sue them. I could try to raise hell about it and give them really bad publicity. I could go on TV and complain about it. I could start a GoFundMe and try to raise money for surgery, for whatever. If the government tells you that you're too sick to get that kidney or whatever, then where do you go? There's no go-to place. And I know you just said like that, you know, it doesn't have to be that way, you know, the rationing idea. But I think that's, I don't know. I mean, obviously Sarah Palin used that. Maybe she cried wolf and maybe it won't resonate. But I do think there is a fear. And I think it's not a crazy thing to be concerned.
I just saw on my Twitter feed someone responded to me, you know, single payer is the kind of system where you can, you know, let a kid die like they just did in Britain. Now, from what I read about Bernie's bill, and I haven't read the text of it, but what I read was that it essentially covers everything outside of elective surgeries, like plastic surgery. And so the response is, so I'm sure conservatives are going to say, you're letting the government decide who gets care and who doesn't. And the death penalty argument will come back. And the response would be, that's not in the bill. The bill doesn't say that. Bill says everybody gets covered. And the response is going to be, look what just happened in Britain.
Right.
You can tell me now that it's not going to happen, but I'm giving you the power to decide. Yep. And I don't know how this is going to change. Maybe 10 years you say, well, this got too expensive and we got to scale it back, and now you don't get that anymore.
I mean, I that's where I'm at. I mean, look, should I have to pay more taxes because you drank, you know, were a raging alcoholic for 30 or 40 years and never did a push-up? Should I have to, like, pay more taxes to take care of you because you didn't take care of yourself, because you made lifestyle choices to get yourself in this position?
I mean, that's what people, I can't believe I have to remind people of this. I mean, yeah, a lot of these arguments I think are hysterical and may have no bearing to what would actually happen in a real single payer plan. But what in the last 3 decades tells you that you can just say, hey guy, don't worry about it. Don't worry about your hysterical concern. Just read the bill text, it's going to be okay. That's not how healthcare debates work. So why would you say, oh man, well, Obamacare sucked because it did this and that and it was so complicated, and that's not gonna happen with single payer. The obvious moral force for justice is so plain in single payer that I just have to tell people that your concerns are unfounded and it's gonna be fine. Why would you think that?
I worry that people on that this issue has gotten away from people on my side of this issue. And I think you may be underestimating a little bit how far to the left things have swung on this issue.
Well, again, I think there's a good head of steam for it in the abstract, because we haven't gone through all of the pro and con yet. Again, I don't know if we will go through all the pro and con in a campaign style setting. So again, my argument is not Democrats can't win taking this position. Maybe they can't. Maybe the concerns will rise earlier, but it's possible that it will not. I'll say this much at least. You know, for Obamacare, you had hundreds of millions of dollars pumped in by the pharmaceutical industry in favor of the bill. They brought back the Harry and Louise actors for an ad with Harry and Louise promoting the bill. The insurance lobby did fund a tax via the Chamber of Commerce, but they were at the table the whole time. They did not go at the bill from day one. The Harry and Louise ads from 1993 happened before the bill was drafted. They knocked it out of they killed it in the crib. That didn't happen with Obamacare. So in a single payer fight, you are talking about the survival of the private insurance industry. They're not gonna half-ass that battle. Number one, they're gonna be all in, as will the drug lobby, and possibly the hospitals too. Although I just read that Bernie did not ban for private hospitals in his version of the bill, which some people on the left wanted him to do. But hospitals still might say, hey, they could come for us next, so I got to fight it. And I suspect they'll pull another corporate opposition because they'd be setting a precedent that the federal government can have a hostile takeover of an industry, which has never really happened in modern memory. I mean, the last government takeover industry was Amtrak, and that's because it was left for dead. It wasn't that the train industry was saying, don't take me over. So I suspect you would have just a ferocious battle where every possible, I mean, the death penalty argument that Sarah Palin gave in 2008 was not corporate funded. There was no spreading of that argument beyond the Tea Party fever swamp because the insurance lobby and the drug lobby weren't vehemently opposed to the bill. That's not going to be the case in a single-payer fight.
All right, you convinced me. Let me make sort of a corollary, I guess, to your take on why this is catching on so much. I think you made a good point about the socialist angle to it, but I think kind of part and parcel of that is that the other issues like the environment, gun control, they have a sort of a cosmopolitan, limousine liberal vibe to them. But for some, but healthcare, this is like also a populist, issue that clearly resonates like on the Sanders type people, but also the Trump type people. So if you believe that Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders are representative of the zeitgeist, then this does make sense for Democrats to pursue this issue.
Why doesn't Bernie lead the fight for a $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan? Why isn't that the bill that comes out right now and says, everybody, let's force this issue on the table. Let's get a discharge petition, force a vote in the House. Trump says he wants it. If he said $1 trillion, I'm going to raise the stakes $1.5 trillion.
Well, that could be easily co-opted by Trump.
Well, exactly. It does not serve the purpose of disrupting the Democratic Party and establishing Bernie as the de facto ideological leader.
Yeah. Disruption, not always a good thing. Well, I do like the fact that you are, again, with apologies to Hillary Clinton, you've become the preeminent voice opposition against single payer from the left. So that's
something.
That's something.
Do I get a check for that?
I don't know if there's like a statue or that we will tear down someday.
Cash prize. I want a cash prize. It's really. I don't need my image anywhere. I need a check.
All right. So I don't know how we're doing on time, but we could talk about football and me.
Oh yeah.
Or we could talk.
I'm actually sad we didn't talk about this last week because you wrote this last week. I mean, we've talked about your love of sports for years on this show. As you know, I have reduced myself only to love of Australian rules football. We're in the playoffs right now. The Adelaide Crows are in the catbird seat.
You're telling me as if I don't know.
Well, maybe some people in the DMZ sphere don't know. The last year's champion, the Cinderella Western Bulldogs, did not make the playoffs, so we're going to have a new champion this year. So I'm excited. I know you're excited. But you have said publicly you are not watching National Football League football this year for the first time.
I did not watch a second of, not a minute, not a second of football week one. Nothing.
So I made this decision.
Not Thursday night football, not Redskins, Eagles Sunday afternoon, not Monday night. Nothing.
Now, I made this move a long time ago, not for any great moral reason, it just sort of dawned to me, hey, I'm not socially obligated to do this. Oh, look, I have my Sundays now. I can do lots of things on Sundays.
There are people out, especially if you live out on the West Coast, where the games come on at like 10 a.m. out there, 3-hour difference. There are people, that's their Sunday.
Right.
I mean, you've got the games at 10 a.m. West Coast. You've got games at 1.
Right. And
then you've got the Sunday night game. I mean, you could literally be going from 12 hours all day Sunday.
So how did Sunday feel to you? What did you do on your first football-free Sunday?
Well, it was like the week before, right? Because so if I had started watching the season and if I had given it up week 6 or 7, there might have been a feeling of loss. What do I do now? But I haven't been watching football on Sundays because the season hadn't started yet, and so there wasn't a big loss. I think that I did it at the right time, and in terms of dealing with the withdrawal symptoms.
Does it provide any tranquility in the household? Oh, thank God, I don't have to like lose Dad every Sunday for the next 3 months. Oh, we can actually do something as a family for the fall. We can go apple picking. We can go to the pumpkin patch. Finally.
Such a rustic, bucolic, Rockwellian idea you have of my life. I would say, nothing like that obvious, but I would say that, there is something to it, about like, so there's a good side of football, which is you wake up in the morning, you've got something to look forward to. There's a game on, and then it's like, and there is a communal part. I've got something to talk to people about, maybe there's the guy, when I used to work at the Daily Caller, I didn't have a whole lot in common with like the security guys at the front desk, but we could talk sports. You know what I mean? And so there was a network, not even networking, but just like something that you might have in common, a communal thing. There was a positive side to it, even if but we're talking a minimum of 3 to 4 hours a week of watching the games.
Well, now it's bled out because it's not just Sunday anymore when we were kids. Now it's Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. There's fantasy football. You gotta work on your team and trade your folks. It consumes much more of the week now, doesn't it?
Yes, totally. And so it's a lot of time, and I think there's a few different aspects, right? So if you're on the left, you could obviously anybody could, but specifically people on the left might be concerned about concussions, about the domestic abuse that we see in the NFL. If you're on the right, I mean, it pisses me off to see Colin Kaepernick and other people not standing for our national anthem. And I would say there's definitely a sense that liberalism and has infiltrated the NFL and ESPN, and it's become politicized more than it used to be. It's not an escape for me. I used to be, I do politics all week. I can turn on football and not think about politics. Now, look, there's always been.
So which is the impetus for your boycott? Is it the liberal critique or the conservative critique?
Well, it's the conservative critique much more. But truth be told, I actually think that more than any political rationale, what's really led me to this is the fact that, we moved to a new house. We do not have, by design, a TV in our main area. We have it's not even a basement. It's a first level. So our living room, dining room, kitchen's on our second level. That's where we basically live. There's no TV there. On the first floor, we have kind of a playroom where there's a big screen TV. And I've gotten out of the habit of watching a lot of TV. And when I do watch TV, it's not me being like reactive or being like, gotta get home to watch Dynasty. It's me choosing to watch a show like Ozark on Netflix, or something that I'm choosing to watch when I want to watch it, where I want to watch it. I'm not beholden to anybody else's schedule. And just as a human being, I've tried, I've gotten into to minimalism. I'm into new urbanism. So part of what I try to be as a person, and I obviously fail, but try to be like someone who is really thinking about how I use my time, about family, about purpose, about using my time. I think that I've become trained now because of like Netflix and technology, coupled with my sort of trying to be a better steward of my time. Like all of these things have conspired to kind of make me grow out of football. And then the Colin Kaepernick thing, I think, is just the.
I mean, that was the tipping point. I mean, here's a guy who's been effectively banned from the game. The conservatives have won the argument that he doesn't get to play.
Oh, but it's catching on. Other players are kneeling during the national anthem, refusing to stand. And and I'm somebody who I used to listen to like Bill. See, so this plays into the time spent. I would listen to Bill Simmons podcasts, and I would listen to, I would watch like Pardon the Interruption. I used to listen to Tony Kornheiser's, not just Pardon the Interruption every day, but his radio show every day. We would talk about the Redskins and it's, speaking of the Redskins, got to change the name of the Washington Redskins. It's just the politicization of it is, I don't need any more of this. Like this liberalism, like I feel under it.
God, so annoying.
I do. I feel under attack in many ways, that my beliefs and values are under attack by the left. And sports, specifically football, because baseball still is a refuge mostly, but football used to be an escape for me, and now it's one more channel for me to feel like I'm under attack.
So where am I
going to spend my time and money supporting these people that I don't know? Why am I rooting just because the Washington Redskins happen to be based in a city near where I live? Why am I upset and depressed when they lose and happy when they win? This is absurd.
Well,
why am I paying money to watch people who don't share my values at all disrespect my country? Why am I doing it? It just doesn't make sense for me to do that.
So where in American culture is the conservative safe space now? Where can conservatives go to unwind and relax and not be bothered by all the hurly-burly of liberal annoyances?
This is your safe space right here. It's a civil conversation. Yes, it may challenge some of your preconceived notions, but it's civil. No, for now, I mean, number one, I think it's a dwindling. Look, speaking of the safe spaces and the need for the safe spaces and the trigger warnings and all that, like, I'm not calling on a ban of the NFL. Mm-hmm. This is me voting with my feet, basically. But for now, I think baseball is mostly a safe haven, but we'll see where that goes.
I mean, there's nothing specific about baseball that makes it insulated from the politics of the country.
I mean, I just think baseball's, it's less of a big deal. There's 162 games a year, and there's a long tradition in baseball, much longer tradition. You don't have the concussion problem. So for a variety of reasons, it seems like it's more stable and less vulnerable to this, but we'll see. I mean, first they came for football,
There's always Aussie rules football. That if you really want to be wholly removed from American the trial and tribulation of American politics.
Well, I'll tell you one of my other. So baseball, part of the reason I don't leave baseball and don't leave the Orioles is it's one of the connections that I have to where I come from and to who I am, and to, like, I used to listen to baseball games with Joe Angel and John Miller, with my dad. We would listen to the Orioles games on the radio, and so like that has a personal connection to where I come from. Mm-hmm. One of the concerns I have with leaving football is, it's like, as a columnist, as a writer who tries to be an observer of social trends and somewhat as connected as I can be to America, living in swanky hotels in New York City, is this cutting the cord with football? And by the way, I reserve the right to totally back. I'm trying this out. Football is a tempting mistress. It's possible I'll get sucked back into its vortex, especially if the Redskins make the playoffs, in the highly unlikely event that were to happen.
Are you peeking? Are you peeking at the standings?
No, I'm not. Look, and here's the other thing too: I'm not. So sort of like Adam Carolla says, like, he's an atheist because he doesn't want to burn calories on religion. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be the kind of fanatic. Like, I'm doing this to not pay attention to football. I'm not going to, like, become a fanatic that like goes out and tries to evangelize other people to quit watching the NFL. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm trying to have more time, not less. So look, I'm not going to be a fanatic about it. If I'm at someone's house and the Super Bowl's on, I'm going to watch it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be like crazy about this, but I'm also not going to like be sucked into it to the degree that I was. But I do worry, is this cutting the cord one more example of me becoming some like out of touch person that like, you know, like was that one, what, you know, what do you think about that? Like,
I think that shark has jumped. You are the worst of America. You're a cultural liberal elitist posing as a conservative. You live in the Acela corridor and you never leave. You get your Christmas trees delivered in the mail. All is lost for you.
Technically, that is true. But at least I have put up a Christmas tree, and it's not fake. Maybe real America goes for fake trees. No, I don't know.
Well, yes, because they're cheaper. You buy it once and you're done.
You go to Walmart. Anyway, so let us know in the comments what you think. I'm doing it for ostensibly conservative purposes, but you know how that goes.
Well, I think we should leave it on that note, sir.
All right, another award-winning show, and this is your safe space. If you are, you know, this is your trigger warning. This is your safe space.
I remember, if this was not enough Lewis and Scher for you, go listen to Matt Lewis in the News. Get a whole other 30 minutes of scintillating political conversation.
I think we should do this every day. I don't know that once or twice a week is even enough.
Maybe we should be a Truman Show thing where we keep sort of virtual reality helmets on ourselves, and we're just constantly giving commentary to our daily lives throughout the 24 hours.
Eventually, we may have to do that just to stay relevant, just to keep up with the Joneses. All right, guys, you know what to do. Check us out on Twitter at DMZ Show, and check out that episode of us on iTunes, Matt Lewis and the News, and. What have you that should go read my piece about the NFL at the Daily Beast, and your piece about Pelosi at Real Clear Politics, and your piece about single payer at Politico magazine.
I'm not sure if we talked about this might have been after the last show. I also have a political piece from last week on Hillary's book. Hillary's message to Democrats: "Don't give Bernie the keys." About how it's related to the single payer argument, but how I think she's using the book to warn Democrats away from letting him become the de facto leader. So check that out as well.
And I also wrote a piece at the Daily Beast this week about Steve Bannon, who is Steve Bannon trying to help Democrats take Congress? It's hard to tell.
Whether he wants to or not, that's what he's doing.
Whether he wants to or not, he may be helping them. So do all that. Those are your homework assignments. And then we'll see you back here next week in the DMZ.
All right, take care.